Welcome to Sakshi TV's special immigration show. Today, we have with us Mr. Jon Wasden as our guest from Wasden Banias LLC. Please note that Sakshi TV now has 3 immigration shows every week on Wednesday at 5:30 p.m. EST with attorney Prashanti Reddy in English, on Thursday at 5:30 p.m. EST with attorney Chant Parvatneni, and on Friday at 6 p.m. EST with attorney Bhanu Ilindra. Please tune in to ask your questions. If you're an immigration attorney and would like to join our special shows, please email us at usa@sakshi.com or call 866-725-7441. Before we begin the show, please note that the information provided on this show is not a legal advice and is for general informational purposes only. Sakshi TV or its agents will not be responsible for use of information. If you need specific legal advice, please contact the attorney directly. Let me give you a quick introduction of our special guest today. Mr. Jon Wasden is the founder of Wasden Banias LLC. John began his legal career as a trial attorney in the US Air Force, appearing in over 50 criminal trials in the 6 years. He then joined the US Department of Justice, Civil Division, Office of Immigration, Litigation, District Court Section, where he defended immigration regulations and decisions under the Administrative Procedure Act, APA. He litigated cases in 17 districts and 3 circuit courts across the country. His last position in government was with the Administrative Appeals Office, AAO, focusing on employment-based legal issues and advising on litigation in these areas. Today's topic is H4 and L2 visa updates. We will continue the knowledge session along with the news and updates on latest immigration, followed by Q&A. Before we get into the topic, you can call us on the numbers displayed on the screen for questions related to immigration and also ask for tips. Hello, Mr. Watson. Welcome to the show. How are you doing?
Thank you. It's good to be with you.
Same here.
Doing well. Yourself?
Very well, sir. Thank you. So today's topic is the H4 and L2 updates. And before we get to the questions, sir, could you please provide us a little background on this particular case? Could you please give our audience a little background to this?
Sure. As your audience is probably already well aware, it used to be a very, very efficient, seamless process. Your H1, H4, H4 EAD were all adjudicated by one single person all at the same time,
right,
using the same documents. The Trump administration tried to do away with the H4 EAD unsuccessfully through regulation and tried to kill it by imposing this biometric requirement. That the only purpose to this biometric requirement was to slow down the H4 EAD. And so they split up the adjudication. Now 3 different adjudicators look at those 3 different documents, and it has taken a long time. So we filed a class action lawsuit challenging the agency's adjudication of L2s and H4s back a year ago. And we filed an emergency motion, and right off the bat, the government withdrew its biometric policy, told the court that this would fix the problem and that processing times will be at 6 months by October 1st of 2021.
Right.
Now, yeah, go ahead.
Right, please go on, sir. I'm just agreeing with you.
Okay. Yeah, so as all of your viewers probably know, that didn't happen. Getting rid of biometrics and had no real meaningful impact. So the court was just kind of waiting to see what would happen. The government kept saying, yes, we're going to be at 6 months. And then in October, they said they were at 6 months. We had a new judge assigned to the case who is intent on resolving these legal issues very quickly. And what's very readily apparent is the government has lied to the court. And we have an opportunity to add in new plaintiffs into this case that expose the lie of the government. So they are not at 6 months. They're nowhere near 6 months. And if we have old plaintiffs with old cases, that really highlights that. What it also gives us a chance to do is attack another lie of the government, which is that they process applications in a first come, first out basis. And we're seeing incredibly random adjudication patterns. I just today saw a case where somebody filed and they were adjudicated with the H1. whereas you have people who are waiting for a year plus in the same service center. It really makes no sense of what's happening. So we had a status conference with the court, and the government indicated that they think this case should be dismissed because all of the initial plaintiffs in the case have gotten their EADs and gotten their benefits. And the court was very open that they would allow us to amend the pleadings to add in new live plaintiffs to keep the case from dying. So I think we can keep the case from dying, and we also get the government, expose the government. What they've been saying is not true to the court.
Right. So we really appreciate what you're doing for all of us. So, Mr. Wasden, what are you asking the court to do regarding the H4 visa and the L2 visa?
So there's two different legal issues in play, and they're separate for the two different visa categories. By the way, the regulations and statute are structured. For the L2s, it's a very clear issue. When Congress created the visa category, they told the agency they had to adjudicate these things within 30 days. And obviously they're not doing that. So we have a statutory question from Congress in front of the judge on L2s for 30 days. With the H4s, what we're looking at is you have a requirement within the regulations that prohibits you from filing an extension any earlier than 6 months. And so because all of your benefits are riding on the continuation of your benefits are riding on a timely decision on your application, the government has a duty to provide you a decision within 6 months. So what we're asking the court to do is enter a decision or an order that demands that the agency either adjudicates within 6 months or gives a decision on applications before the automatic loss of your employment eligibility. Either one of those outcomes would be a huge win for the H4 community.
Right, right. And Mr. Watson, what is the benefit to joining the suit?
So like I said at the beginning, this is a class action. Now with class actions, you are technically suing on behalf of everybody in the entire country who is impacted in a similar way. The problem with a class action is that nationwide relief takes months to achieve because you have to go through a bunch of additional legal wranglings. So if you're a named plaintiff in the case, your information is already there right in front of the government, and they can go through the pleadings, get your information, and start processing you immediately because you as a named plaintiff are the subject of that first judicial order, assuming it's in favor of us, the plaintiffs. So it really is a question of speed, how quickly the judge's order is going to affect you personally.
Right, so does that mean the more the merrier? You know, the more the plaintiffs, the faster probably the jury would arrive at a decision?
So in these cases, it's a judge only who makes a decision. There's no jury. But I think the more plaintiffs you have, especially with these long delayed cases, the stronger the argument is that the government is clearly screwing up and the court needs to order them to fix this. That is where the volume of plaintiffs, I think, has the greatest impact. In terms of impact on individuals, being a named plaintiff, if we're successful, will definitely make your relief faster or your decision on your case in court faster.
I sincerely hope that you're successful in this. But what is the expected timeline for this?
So from our status conference a week and a half ago, it was very clear that the court was looking to wrap this case up soon. Now, soon in terms of judicial time is 2 months, 2.5 months. The government indicated that they would likely be filing what's called a motion to dismiss. That will happen within the next couple of weeks. What we want to do is beat them to the punch and file an amended complaint, adding these new plaintiffs in to keep the case alive. And that will preempt the government, basically block their motion to dismiss, and give the court a fresh set of plaintiffs to enter a ruling on behalf of.
Right.
So we hope to file our amended complaint no later than the middle of next week.
Right. Understood. So, but sir, are first H4 EAD applicants eligible to join?
Yes. So H4 EAD applicants are suffering the same type of harm in that they're prohibited from working. Now, H4 extensions, obviously they have a job or they've had employment authorization and lost it, but so have many of the initial H4 EAD applicants. Many of them are switching from H1B or from an OPT where they had employment eligibility and transitioning to H4 where they're losing it and losing their job. So they all share that same basic harm of being prohibited from working, which is the entire point of the H4 EAD regulation and law, is we want to encourage H4s to work. And so initial or extension, either one are eligible.
Right. So, and what about premium processing for this particular case?
So in our status conference, the judge asked that same question and asked us, doesn't premium processing fix this and make this case irrelevant? And our response was, well, if it happened immediately, yes. However, they're not going to allow this for several years. And so these plaintiffs and the people right here, right now, are without hope. And she didn't realize that it took several years to kick in for the H4 community. And that kind of was concerning to her, it appeared from her expressions. So I wish premium processing had been delivered in a timely fashion to where it could help people, but the government was intent on really not helping the H4 and L2 community.
Right, right. And is there a cost involved to apply? And can you tell us
Yes,
how much
there
it
is.
is
So,
approximately?
yeah, sure. So we have 4 attorneys and we have 4 paralegals that will be basically working around the clock to get this case ready to file in a very short period of time. And we've calculated how much time that takes us to go through all the documents and legal pleadings and budgeted that out on a flat rate per plaintiff, which is $2,500.
Right.
And so that should cover our attorney expenses and get us right there. So it's a flat rate, one-time billing, and there will be no additional charges regardless of what happens.
So we're talking about the H4 L2 visas today. So, and we were talking about some questions regarding that particular thing. So my last question for today is, does joining the suit guarantee an EAD in 8 weeks? Is that possible, Mr. Wasden?
While we anticipate a decision from the court within 8 weeks, maybe faster, it doesn't guarantee a particular outcome if you're a plaintiff. There's variables involved, whether or not the judge agrees with us. We think we have a very compelling case. It remains to be seen how the judge truly feels. So that's a variable we can't control. So we can't guarantee a timeline for your EAD delivery, but we expect that the judge will make a decision that impacts the plaintiffs within that period of time.
Right. So with that, we come to the end of our questions regarding this particular lawsuit. But then, would there be anything you'd like to inform our audience? Any would you like to make them aware of any particular situation? Any kind of tips you'd want to give them?
Yeah. So If they're interested in joining or wanting more information, they can email us at our info@wasdenbanis.com, WASDENBANIAS.com. And you can see the documents that we need. If you're interested, what we'll mostly need is your application receipts, your approval notices for the H1 and I-140 to show eligibility. And if you've done any type of expedite request, it's not necessary to join the suit. But if you have, and you have documentation of that, please provide that, because oftentimes it's very useful to show how diligent people have been in trying to advocate for themselves. But the agency is not terribly helpful in recognizing that. So all of those things together, we'll review that and we'll put that information where relevant into the legal pleadings.
Right, brilliant. Also, before we end the show for today, we have a custom here. Any attorney or any special guest that we have for the show has to give our audience a special immigration message or a golden immigration message, which applies to, let's say, a majority of the immigrants. Any advice that you'd like to give them? It can be general or specific.
Sure.
You can take your time to think. We're right here with you.
So I'll say this, having been on both sides of the immigration issue, having adjudicated petitions and appeals for the government, and having been on the other side of advocating for immigrants, the best thing that you can do is make sure when you submit anything to the USCIS that everything is clear, concise, and you give them just the information that they are asking for and nothing else. The easier you make it for the adjudicator and the fewer questions the adjudicator has, the better off you are. So I would urge people not to provide any extraneous information that is not directly required for the visa benefit they're seeking, and to make sure everything else is very clean, clear-cut, honest, true, and direct, and nothing else.
Understood. So I hope all our audience got that golden immigration message from Jon. So thank you so much, Mr. Wasden, for being on our show. It was a privilege hosting you, and we thank you for giving us all the valuable information and insights about the H4L2 lawsuits and for fighting for us, for the immigrants. With that, we hope you had a good time on the show, giving us all of this information.
Thank you. And we're hoping for just as good of an outcome as we had in the other case we filed for L2s and H4s. Right. In that case, the government agreed to grant all L2s employment authorization incident to status, so no separate EAD filing, and some H4s automatic extension of the EAD, depending on some variables. So, litigation does work. We can make positive changes for people's lives through litigation. We're hoping for the same thing here.
Right, and we hope so too. We're with you. Thank you, Mr. Wasden. Thank you for being on the show. You're watching Sakshi Live. This is Thorni. Thank you.